So I'm going to start off by creating a canvas, and I'm going to call it Walk Cycle Character, because in this series we're going to be creating this animation, and it's going to be a walk cycle. And I'm going to take you through all of it, all the stages, from drawing the character all the way to animating it to walking. So there's going to be about 4 or 5 parts in this series, and I'm going to be taking you guys through each series carefully, showing you exactly what you need to be doing in order for you to animate a walk character. So you can see I've made my canvas in a portrait mode because I want my character to be standing up. We're going to be creating a character in a standing up position. I have an idea of exactly what I want, but let's go ahead and start it. So this is how you regulate your pencil. I'm just literally just adjusting the size of my pencil, and I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing now. So in portrait mode, what I'm talking about is that I want my character to be standing up. So I'm gonna start with this gesture lines because I want him or her. I'm actually gonna draw a girl, so I want her to be standing up. And to make this easy for us, especially this is the first tutorial series of a walking animation, I'm gonna make her face on the side. So you can see here, this is gonna be around her collar area, but she's gonna be facing off to our right, and she's gonna be walking from the left all the way to the right. So the first step is drawing a character in a standing position. You want them to be kind of in a neutral position, because there's a bunch of positions that we're going to be making this puppet in. You have to draw each frames out. For this series, we're going to do frame by frame animation, so we will physically be drawing out all our frames. But to get a glimpse of what we want our character to look like, I'm going to go ahead and start off the character in a standing position, in a neutral standing position, where I can actually establish the proportions and also establish the parts that I want her to have. And then later on, we'll copy this same character, and then off of it, we will draw different poses, and then go ahead and play them in a row in order for us to be able to animate this character. So let's go ahead. This looks kind of good. It's just a neutral position of a girl standing up, and I'm going to emphasize here on the legs a little bit because we're going to be concentrating on them a lot, because you know it's a walk cycle and apparently humans use legs to walk. So you could see my character is starting to come up on paper a little bit here. I usually start off with a sketch, and what I did not say is that I put that on the first layer. So it's good for you to create your artwork in layers, so that way you can know what to tweak and when to change what, when you want to change what. So I'm gonna go ahead and give her this thing on the head. It looks like headphones, but it will help me to cut off her haircut a little bit. I'm gonna give her a little bit of the bangs in the front here. I'm gonna make this one flow down this way. But of course I'm going to give her a little bit of the hair here in the front. And in this one, we're not going to go into so much details of making the hair move, making her blink, making her do whatever. We're not going to do all that. We're just going to draw a character and make sure that we pose it correctly for the illusion of movement, the illusion of walking from one place to the other. And we're not going to draw in a background or shadows or anything. We're just going to draw a character and make sure that their limbs, especially the legs and the hands, give us an illusion of her walking. It's going to be facing this way, so she's going to be walking from our left to our right. Now I'm going ahead and blocking in her eyes. So a little bit of anatomy and physiology here for drawing a human comes in, but since they're characters that we're working on, it's a little bit forgiving. For example, you can see here the head is way off. It's way huge compared to if this was a real human. But you still need to know the proportions of a human or human anatomy in order for you to be able to caricature it a little bit. So let me go ahead and block in the eyes here. And yeah, I like those hands that I just gave her. And she's wearing kind of like a hoodie, like a little bit of Little Red Riding Hood, but it's kind of a short neck brown hoodie. And she has this beautiful hair that is flowing, but it's not going all the way down. So this looks actually really good for my sketch. So the steps I usually go through, if you haven't watched my video that I just put off of the series of how I actually create my characters, you should go ahead and watch it. I'm gonna leave a link to it in the description below. You should go ahead and watch how I actually start all my characters from beginning to the end in FlipaClip. I usually start off with a sketch like what you're seeing right now on the screen, and then from there I bring in an inker and then go over it. Every once in a while I have to go over the sketch like twice in order for me to tie down my drawing. Start off with those gestural, powerful movement drawings, and then I go from those all the way to creating, you know, a tied down sketch. And then from that sketch I drop the opacity, and then I go on top of it and I create another layer on top of it. I bring out the inker brush, and then I put in carefully designed lines of different width and different weights in order for me to convey, you know, a lot of my message there. So you can see now I'm starting to think about where the darkness is going to come from and where the lit areas are going to be. That's why you see a little bit of shading going on here on the head. And oops, that is not what I intended to do. Let me see if I can clean this up. Sometimes my pencil draws really these fat lines that I didn't ask for. But yeah, you can see now I'm tying down my I'm actually tying down my sketch, and I'm liking it. Looks like I'm getting exactly everything the way I want it to be. So what's gonna go ahead and happen, let me introduce another layer on top of that, and then drop down the original layer's opacity. And layer 2 is gonna be my ink layer. So now I'm gonna go ahead and choose the pen, which is the kind of like the only inker that we have now in the assets that we have with FlipaClip. And let me see if this is thick enough. I want to give her a bold kind of line that will be easy to read. So now what happens is I go ahead and ink my character in. No smoothing or whatever, I'm just really drawing to convey the message. And that's one thing that you should actually not be stuck on. It is good to know how to draw if you want to do good animations, but don't sweat it too much, because most of these are going to be actually in movement. You're not Michelangelo or Picasso who's drawing one frame that everybody else is going to be judging them off of. With animation, you could have a few things off a little bit, but because your character is going to be moving, every once in a while they will go back to the perfect one, as long as you have a couple of perfect drawings in there. So you need to loosen up a little bit sometimes when you're drawing for animation. But yeah, I like the line in here that the FlipaClip pen actually gives, and I can zoom in all the way and get to the nitty-gritty in here and add all my lines in. So what happens is when you finally add your lines in, now you can start to see the character come to life. But this would be the second phase that I do, which is usually inking. The fingers there, I don't want to draw AI fingers. Apparently AI does not know how to draw fingers yet. So I want to make sure I give her this breast line over here and go all the way to the bottom. The other thing too that I will not forget to mention is that the easier you draw your character, or the simpler you draw it, is the easier for you to animate. So you don't want unnecessary details. You literally do not want unnecessary details, especially the details that will be lost in or will complicate your animation. You want to keep it simple but also interesting. For example, you can see what I'm adding on here. I'm just trying to make sure that it actually flows perfectly. Just a few details just to make the character look a little bit more enticing and more realistic, but without making it way too complicated. We'll get to that in the advanced classes, but in this series we're just tackling the basics of movement. We're just tackling the basics of a walk cycle. So everything is just gonna stay basic. In the first series, I explained more on how I create 3D feeling characters, and characters that are more appealing for FlipaClip. So if you did not watch that series, I strongly suggest that you go watch it. You'll know exactly what I'm working on here, all the steps before I actually explain all of them, especially when it comes to character creation here. Not necessarily the animation of walk, because we didn't do that in the first series, but the creation of the character. It will give you a glimpse on what is going on in my mind when I'm creating this, like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to give her these are going to be in the knees. So I want to define points like these, because these points are going to be really important when we actually are animating it. That's a huge eraser, and every once in a while my pencil is actually flipping out and creating unnecessary lines, but I'm gonna try to make sure I control as much as I can. And that's pretty much it. So what's gonna happen, guys, in the next video, I'll come back, I'll be showing you guys how I add colors to this character and how I start separating now where I want what to be. And then after that, we'll come back with a video that will be allowing us to actually pose the character in each frame. It's going to be about 8 frames to do a quick walk cycle. Between 6 to 8 frames you can do a satisfactory walk cycle. There's standard poses, which I'm going to reveal in the next video, that you're supposed to have. For example, the contact pose, the passing pose, you need to have those ones at least. And then the in-betweens, you can add as much as you want depending on how you want your animation to be fluid. I'm not going to try to make mine as fluid as Disney does. I'm just going to try to make mine a simple animation just to show you guys the basics, because this is a beginner's tutorial on how to do a walk cycle that is actually not bad, and it's just pleasant. And we're going to make our girl walk like she has a purpose. Go here and give her a little bit of bone cheek here. A cheek bone, not a bone cheek. Cheek bone. Yeah, and I'm gonna give her a little bit of a frown in her face just so I can make her serious, because she's gonna be walking like she has a purpose. And as I said, everything, keep it simple. The eyes, you don't want to complicate it. Just draw a line and fill in the shapes. That's pretty much it. This is animation, this is not fine art. Even though you need to know how to draw, you don't have to draw perfect in order for you to create good animation. So I can add this little detail here of something that I want to be on her head, which is like head ear coverings. Ooh, that circle's terrible. I gotta draw another one. It's not a perfect circle. It has a little bit of an inclining here, and you can see I'm having trouble drawing this one here. There's a couple of tools that I wish actually FlipaClip would add. You can add compare it to drawing softwares like Sketchbook Pro or Procreate, but at least I wish they could add some of those in there. For example, when you draw a shape and it snaps into space, that would be a game changer if they could ever add that to FlipaClip. I love FlipaClip. Sometimes I just find myself drawing in it without even creating animation, but just making drawings, and I just go to FlipaClip instead of going to the other professional drawing softwares like Sketchbook Pro or even Procreate. It's good to know that if you're going to animate in this software, at least draw in it to come more confident with it. So this will be tying up our video and ending it. And guys, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and also share with other animators so if they could use this information. In this series, we're gonna be making this little doll we just drew walk. And thank you so much for watching. I'll hope to see you again in the next video. Bye bye for now. Hello guys, welcome to video number 2 in this series of doing the walk cycle on FlipaClip. In video number 1, we're starting to draw a character, and in this video number 2, we're going to start coloring it in. So now we have our ink layer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create another layer on top of it that I'm going to start dropping the colors in. So usually what I actually do, I love having two layers of this. I love having duplicate layers of this. So now I can color in the layer underneath, but I still have the ink work on top of the other layer that I'm actually coloring in. So what you do is duplicate your ink work and start pouring in the ink on the level on one layer below. Like let the line work be on top so you could see it come through. And now I'm just using the paint bucket as always and using different shades of the same color. For example, here on the pocket and here on her sleeve and this thing that is running in the hoodie. I want to make it a little bit darker. So I'm just pouring in the color here. At this point, don't be worried so much about how the character looks, but instead just pour in the colors depending on what colors you've chosen. Oh, I don't like that. So let me make the dark one be the one in the back, and then this front one I'm gonna make it a little bit a little bit lighter. But yeah, at this point I don't care that much about how my character looks. All I care about is I've chosen the right colors and that I'm going to just pour in the colors, and everything else will come after that. So I'm gonna go ahead here and choose this color, but because it's the one on top, I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter. So let me go to my paint bucket, make it a little bit lighter, and pour it into the socks here. And remember, as I said before, you just want to make it as simple as possible. It doesn't have to be complicated, especially because you're drawing for animation, you're not painting. Just don't make it complicated. Make it easy to read and really easy for you, especially because you're going to be now, because what's happening here, I'm putting in these color flats, but later on I'll just go in and put in a little bit of darks and a little bit of lights on the sweater or jumper or whatever the hell she's wearing here, and also on the body. Everywhere else I'll make sure I add a little bit of depth to it, but let me give her a human color here a little bit and make sure she kind of matches kind of a human, because she is. Just make sure you fill in colors. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what your color choices are. At this point, all you have to do is fill in some colors so you can have some color flats down. And then I have a trick that I'm going to share with you guys that I actually use for my shadows and for my lit areas. That is always different for me, and I have two methods of how I do it, and I'll share both of them when it's time for us to put in the shadows and putting in the highlights as well to make our character even more compelling. Now, talking about that, I actually just finished a whole series about making your characters compelling and making them looking good. Even though you painted them in FlipaClip, people may even actually think you didn't paint them in FlipaClip. You can see even this one, the way it's looking, it's starting to come out looking so good. It's almost Illustrator kind of vibes to it. But when you You saw I drew it from FlipaClip all the way. So as I was saying, I just finished that series. If you haven't watched it, you could go ahead and watch it. I'll leave this, should be the video here popping up. You could go ahead and click on it and watch how I create characters from scratch. It's more in-depth than this right here. But yeah, let's go ahead and finish the color in here. I don't know exactly what kind of hair I should be giving her. Still debating. That looks it doesn't actually look very bad for the hair. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's actually I don't know if I should change that color of the hair. I'm not 100% with it, but it doesn't matter anyways. I'm just dropping in some colors. Later on, when I put highlights on them and dark parts, it may look even better. But for now, let's just drop in some colors. So thank you guys so much for watching this one. And what's gonna happen in the next video, now we're gonna come back and we're gonna start doing the real nitty-gritty kind of vibes, where we actually going to take this character and break her into pieces, where we're going to be pausing all the poses we have in the walk cycle in order for us to later on play in fast mode so we can animate it, which is what animation is all about. You have your character and then you have the poses, and then after the poses you just play all together and it looks like it's moving. Bye bye for now. Hey everyone, welcome to the most important but also is going to be the longest video in this series. In here we're going to start posing our character, we're going to start posing our puppet in these different poses that will actually help us to animate the walk cycle. So what I did first of all is I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file here, in which I'm gonna go ahead and copy the character that I created first, and then I'll go ahead and paste it in here. So in the other document we were actually just creating the character. If you did not watch the first videos, we created the character from scratch, all the way from sketch to inking and coloring in. Now in this one, what I just did is I went into that old document and into that old film, and I copied out. I selected and clicked copy, and now I came in here and pasted in a new film in a new document. And we're going to go ahead and do these poses down here. There's contact is going to be pose number 1, and then we have the down pose, then we have the pass, and then we have up, and then contact again, which is the same as the first pose, but it's just flipped. Now in this one, since we're just going to be doing frame by frame, it means we have to literally draw each frame. Now we have the framework of the character and what we want it to look like. We're going to go ahead and try to draw each frame, but draw the same exact character in all these different poses. Now, when I said drawing, we're not going to go ahead and draw this character again from scratch. This is why we went through the first 3 videos. You can see here I just copied, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to put it on this frame here, and I will start creating the first contact pose. I'm just going to go ahead and select parts of this character, and then I'll manipulate them to fit the pose that I want to fit. Let me go ahead and delete these little line shadows that I put on the boot here. I want it to be all clear because the feet are very important when you're drawing the poses. The way you place the feet, the way they touch the ground and everything, it's really important. So if we want to add that little bit of a shadow, we could draw a line later on, or we could actually just add that shadow in as special effects later on. Because after we do all these poses, I'll show you guys how to add shadows and also how to add highlights in order to make your puppet a little bit more believable. So now in the contact pose, the hand on the right is going to be in the back, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm going to move my pivot point all the way to her shoulder, and I'm going to pivot it back to look backwards, because this hand has to be back while her left hand is going to be in the front. and the legs are going to be the opposite. So the right leg is going to be in the front and the left leg is going to be in the back. But you have to pay close attention to how we're going to position them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete some of this extra here. And you can see now, since we drew it on the same layer, it has a lot open. So our biggest job is going to be filling up those openings in there. Now I don't want it to be very rigid, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate this hand back a little bit too. So you're swinging the hand in the back, and a little bit of the fingers also go a little past further where the hand stops. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm going to go ahead and bring my pen and close this in. There's going to be a lot of color selections here and changing of things and trying to fill in these spaces. Like you could see here, I'm giving this body part that I'd cut off because before the hand was obstructing it, and when we move the hand out, it made it exposed. But now this is where your drawing is going to be tested. This is where your imagination is going to be tested, because you're going to be filling in the blanks of the places on this character that at first were not shown, or at first were shown and now they're kind of blocked. So you're gonna have to delete them. It's literally drawing frame by frame, even though now we have the framework of this character and the fact that we actually are just manipulating an existing character. So what I'm gonna do is, for the other hand, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this same hand and flip it and put it on the other side. Like you could see, I'm showing you guys here that could totally work, where I could just flip it in there and I just, delete this area and fill it in. So now that I tested that and I said it's gonna work, let me see. I'm gonna go ahead here. Put this back on, select it. If I can only bring out my selection tool and select this hand here. All I need is the forearm, because the other side not a lot is going to be showing. And then I'll flip it and put it over there, but I have to leave this over here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and actually duplicate this. So copy, paste, duplicate. Now I have two hands. She's looking like she's holding another person's hand. And when you put it in there, it looks like it fits. There's a couple of things that I'm not going to worry about so much. For example, where the palms facing, which one is inside, the outside. And it doesn't matter a lot into animation, because when you play that film and everything is in motion, it will look like it fits perfect. It will look like it fits perfect. And for the purposes of this series, this tutorial, we're not into perfection, but we're rather just showing the principles of how you can do a walk cycle. So I'm going to put it on the side here, and that looks pretty good. So we're actually going about 20% of our first pose, and there is 5 poses that we have to do. Usually what I do, actually, after I create the 5 poses, I go at the end for not letting it wiggle a lot, and then I add another pose in there or an in between. But we're not yet in there, so I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Now let's duplicate this leg. Remember, the right hand is going back, so the right foot has to be going forward. It is very important to note that when humans are walking, they have the opposite limb go to the opposite hind limb. For example, if the leg is going front, the hand has to be going back. If the hand is going back, the leg has to be going forward, and vice versa. We don't walk like apes. It's apes, monkeys, and chimps and gorillas that walk with the same hand and same leg going up front. If you were ever asked to do a walk cycle for an ape, that's what you would do. But humans, we've kind of developed to know that we're supposed to be walking with one limb forward while the other hand is going backwards, and then vice versa. And all those principles come from observing, actually. People walk, looking at film, and all that stuff. So now we have to break this into two a little bit so we can bend the knee up a little bit and make the foot like it's in this fast contact pose. By the way, the foot is supposed to be almost like on a 45-degree raise from where it touches the ground, the front foot. And now for the other leg, we're going to go ahead and actually duplicate the same exact leg and bring it backwards. And you can see now I finished duplicating it. So I just want to make sure that it touches the ground the right way, because you can have the front leg coming off of it at a 45-degree angle, and then the hind leg is also coming off at the same time. So you can see here I'm bringing in the outer leg like this. I mean the inner leg, the left leg, I should say, her left leg. And you'll see where I mean that the feet are actually very important, because the way they touch the ground actually makes you believe that the person is walking or is just dancing around and things are just, moving unproportionately. All that matters. I think this is a little bit long, but I'm just going to go ahead and manipulate it, bring it over here to touch her hips and butt area. And then, let me see. So you can see this is starting to already look like a pose, a walking pose, fast contact pose. There's a lot of things that need to be erased, but it's starting to look good. And one of them legs is a little longer, so we have to kind of adjust all of this. And thank God for the tool picker, for the color picker tool, because you're gonna use it a lot in this one, especially when you're filling in these gaps and the open areas that you keep opening when you slice your character into pieces. All that is gonna matter a lot. Let me go ahead and actually bring this closer, make my pen a little bit smaller. Oh, sorry, my eraser, so I can delete this extra weight here in the front of her, because if we had to move the leg out of there, so it left all this chunk of on her shorts that we have to delete. And you can see from the original drawing to now the pose that we have. And this is why I was talking about in the last section, by the way, of coloring, that you should not manipulate the color a lot. You should just do color flats, because you just use a paint bucket and you just pour the colors in. That's important, because at this point you need the colors to be just flat. And now to make this foot a little bit more believable, we're going to go ahead and break it on the ball joint a little bit, so we can make it feel like it's actually touching the ground and not pointing to the ground. It's only the front foot that is supposed to be meeting the ground by around 45 degrees. As you can see, it's showing here. But the hind foot, we have to kind of break it around the ball joint area and make sure it's actually touching the ground the right way. So if that is not actually working, what I'm going to do is let me just draw this on all the way to this little joint, and I can always fill it in. I can always just fill it in. It's going to be working gracefully. You can see everything is starting to fall into place. For a good animation, actually, when you have only 2 frames, most of the times it will be showing you the direction in which the animation is going to be going. Just 2 frames. That's all you need. And you can see the work cycle has 5 different poses, 5 different important poses. So depending on how you want your fluid, your animation, how fluid you want your animation to be, you could always have in betweens in there and make it maybe 10 or 15 frames. But for the purposes of this animation, the purposes of this, we're just studying the basics. So we're gonna have just the 5 poses and try to make it animate. Now you could see here the hind leg was a little longer than the front leg. So what happened is I sliced through that and pulled it and made it a little longer so it can kind of match the hind leg. You don't want him to have, or her for this matter, have one leg shorter than the other, especially with concentrating on a walk where people are going to be looking at the legs the most because it's what you use to walk. This is requiring a rename here. I'm not going to do that. And now, after you put all these ones, after you pin up everything, after you slice it up and you pose it in the right direction that you want, now I'm going to go ahead and start coloring it again. And then when you finally fill in the colors and everything is filled up, all these slices and the open parts are actually filled in, it will start to sound a lot better, or it will start to look a lot better. And you can see I'm drawing all this on a different layer because I have 2 layers. I have one that has the original in there, the original drawing, and then this manipulated drawing to create the fast contact pose. You can see it in there. That way I don't have to tamper with stuff on the other layer if I don't want to. And now on the down pose, which is the pose number 2, I just copied the second drawing that I used in the contact. It'll be easier for me to manipulate that second drawing because it has both limbs visible. It has everything showing up the way I want it, and I could just slice it and manipulate it around a little bit. It'll be a lot easier than copying the original drawing. So you can see here, I just got, say, the leg and making sure that it touches the ground flat, the foot touches the ground flat. It's a lot easier for me to manipulate this second drawing than it is to manipulate the original drawing. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going to each of them and then cutting it and slicing it and posing it in the direction in which we want it. So you can see if I rotate this one, make it come down a little bit. And now you can see because the legs are going to be more folded on this other down pose, and this is why it's called down. It means the head has to come down a little bit too, but we can tackle that after we deal with these limbs and the hands first. So let's go ahead and fold this a little bit, and you can see now it's touching the ground. If you see, I don't know if you can see it through clearly, but I have the onion skinning on, and I can be able to see what my last pose was a little bit there, so it helps you in this frame by frame animation. That looks good. Now on this hind one, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this for a second because there's gonna be a big change. There's gonna be a big change on that foot as well. I want it to be it's gonna be touching the ground like this, so
I might as well just duplicate this first one and then put it on there, and make sure it kind of touches the bottom of where the other one was touching, or on the line on which we're standing. Like, at least the shoe should be hitting on there, because now the shoe is getting off the floor. You can see the first one, it had just a little bit of the front of the foot on the floor, on the ground on which it's walking. Now at this point we have to take it up a little notch, and it's just going to be pointing to it instead of touching it a little bit, or landing on it, or flattening on it in the front section. So it's just going to be touching on it a little bit. Now I see that that works. I'll just duplicate that and bring it in, and you can see the difference between the first pose and the second pose already. This is the down pose. From the contact pose to the down pose, you could see the difference right away. And now I'm going to have the button of moving the entire body of hers down a little bit. Now you can see I just selected from the knees up, and I'm squishing it down a little bit. Not actually squishing, because squishing would be giving her a lot of stretch and squish. But we're not going to do that. We're just bringing the entire body with all its perspective the way it's supposed to be down a little bit. And now you can see the legs and the whole body are kind of done. So what we're going to do, we're going to deal with the hands here. And the hands on the down pose just go a little bit wider actually, and go on the back, and the other one goes in the front a little bit more. So it's more of like action. So you can imagine when somebody is walking in there, and the first one they're taking that first step, and then in this one they're kind of farming it on the ground and making sure that everything is actually flat on the ground. And at this pose, as I mentioned before, somebody goes down a little bit. That's why we had to select the entire body from the knees up and then bring it down a little notch. And you can see the hands go out farther, even farther. Everything spreads more wide open on this pose, on the down pose. And to make it more believable, we're going to go ahead and bring the hand, the palm here with the fingers even more out. You can see how it is from the first one. You can see it through there, and you can see already, you can see that it's kind of trying to move when you try to test animate it, because it's just 2 frames. A lot of flickering going on, especially because we have a lot of open spaces in there that are actually not colored in or even filled in at all. Same exact thing we did. We're gonna flip the hand, copy it, flip it, and bring it in. That doesn't look right, but wait a bit. When we erase some parts of it and manipulate the palm a little bit, it will definitely look right. So you can see that. After erasing some of the points and manipulating the wrist a little bit to make it point a little bit forward. So I'm going to move this make it point a little bit forward, because that's the difference between the left and the right hands. And then I'll go ahead and replace it in the original left hand while I take that one out. So this is where actually frame by frame on a 2D character gets a lot frustrating than actually compared to a 3D character, because a 3D character, if you had your puppet, it would be a lot easier for you to move these and put them in the sections that you want. But if you're doing 2D animation where you have to literally draw every bit of these, it gets a little bit frustrating. But some of us just enjoy the agony of doing animation. You know, there's something to it that is very, very humbling. And you have to have a lot of patience. So you can see, because there's only 2 frames in here, ignore the original character standing behind her, but just look at the 2 poses that we have in there. If I play them, you can see a little bit of flickering going on there. Actually, not a little bit, a lot bit of flickering going on in there. And that's fine. It's just fine. That's what it should look like now, because it's only 2 characters and there's a lot of moving parts. And we don't know what direction it's supposed to be going or whatever, at least the way the FlipaClip is reading it. But after the 3rd pose, which is supposed to be the passing pose, where all the legs now is supposed to be going a lot straight, the front leg and the hind leg is supposed to be coming to meet it, it'll be a lot easier for you to see how, or the direction in which the animation is going. So for the passing pose, the one that is going to be closest to our character is going to be actually the original character. So what I did is I'm copying the original character and I'm bringing it in here. And it's actually good every once in a while to inject in your original character to make the animation very cohesive. Because when you're manipulating them, especially say from the first and the second poses there, it's starting to change. But now on the 3rd pose, you're going to go ahead and bring in your original character, so you can preserve the way your character looks, for that matter. And now we're going to go ahead and start to slice her up in order for us to create this passing pose. I'm going to start by deleting this other leg here on the back, the left leg. And as you know, I use this front one that I have that is actually clearly drawn and clearly visible. I'll duplicate it in order for me to give her the left limb. That helps me to minimize a lot of drawing, because if I had to redraw every piece of her, that would take a long time. Still, that's still drawing frame by frame, but here this helps me actually use the parts that I already have, especially because we're not going for the fine look of the animation, but we're going for the principle and to know exactly what the pose is supposed to be looking like. The pose is supposed to be looking like. And most of the times, these parts are going to be hidden in other parts. For example, in this one, the hind leg is going to be hidden most of the times in front of the front leg, which is her right leg, because it's a passing pose. So the left leg is actually literally passing over the right leg in this pose. And I think this is why it's important for you to bring out the original character at this point. So you can see I'm trying to place it in the right position, but also underneath. If you don't know what I did here, I actually created another layer underneath this layer. And that's where I'm adding this leg in order for it to be behind the whole character. So that's how you can also play with layers a little bit. I have a whole video about layers and how you can play around with them to make your characters look a lot more visibly pleasing. So I'm going to go ahead and break this leg a little bit here on the foot and make it turn over a little bit so it can feel like it's not just a mirror of this other one, just paste it over. And there has to be that kind of fluidity when you're drawing this thing. Otherwise, if you just breaking parts and just placing them like where you think they're supposed to go, it's going to be a lot rigid, and it's just going to be breaking instead of kind of gracefully moving around to create a walking motion. If I try to play this, what we have right now, we're working on the third frame. If we try to play, you can see actually it's starting to pick up the pace and it's starting to work right. But yeah, I was saying the passing pause is literally where the left foot is passing over the right one. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually, yeah, you can see it's starting to go from down to up. The passing pause is supposed to actually be almost our entire height being shown here. And now what's gonna go ahead and happen is I will go ahead and work on the hands now, because I have all the feet now, I think, in the positions actually where I want them for this passing pose. So let me go ahead and use my selection tool for this. And I just want to make sure this is actually aligning up. You don't want some of the things to be squiggling. It will be flickering a lot. For example, if I'm copying this and I'm putting it on the next layer, it will be going back and forth. You just want to make sure at least the standing position is all the same. Our head is in the same posture. It just goes up and down and not on the sides or front and back. So in this next one, I'm going to go ahead and select her front leg first, or her right leg first. I'm going to go ahead and bend it towards this side. Now you can see from the passing pose, it was up a little bit, but in this one, I'm going to try to actually manipulate it a little bit more so it can go back a lot more than it is in the passing pose. I actually lied. In the passing pose, now that we had the left foot come over, it's passing over the right foot, it's going to be going all the way towards the front. So you want to have the right foot going back a little bit, because now they're trading places. The right foot to begin with was in the front section, and it was a left foot that was actually going all the way from the back. Now, after the passing pose, it's supposed to be going to the front, and the right foot is supposed to be going backwards. So that's what we're working on in this pose. Out of all the best poses, this is the second last. So after here, you want to have the left foot all the way on contact, which is like the contact pose that we started with, but this time flipped. We started with the right foot in the front and the left foot all the way in the back. But now in the final one, you want to have the left foot all the way at the front. It's like the contact pose, but flipped. But before we jump into that one, let's go ahead and finish this up. This one is supposed to be the second last. And what I decided to do is let me go through all the poses first, and then I'll come back and fill in with the ink for the line work, and I'll also do the same for the color. I'll just use the paint bucket and I'll fill in a little bit of the color there. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, for the colors, we just have the flats, and we'll have to put the highlights and the shadows later on to make the picture look a little bit more rounded. So now let me go ahead and delete this last section here of the left side, and I'll select the right foot on the right leg. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it, and then I'll move it over to this side. You can see here, and it will work as my left foot. I also suggest that you actually have a little bit of a reference, but every once in a while you could actually, depending on your character, the references sometimes do not fit right. So you just want to make sure that you use reference, just references sake, and you can manipulate your character, your original character, just the way you want. So now that the left foot has passed all the way, we're going to go ahead and put it down here. And we have the right foot now starting to move backwards. Yeah, that looks not bad. And it's at this point that I actually realized the colors that I chose I like. I like the colors that I chose to put on this character. A little bit of a purple over there with some greenish turquoise thing, and then a little bit of a light blue, and I can't even know what color exactly that is, but a little light blue or light purplish for her hair. Then we have some red for the shoes, of course, and this thing she has going on her hair. Now I'll just use my eraser to get rid of some of this and make sure I start to punctuate it up a little bit. When everything is all done, it will be easier for me to fill it in because I will just use the paint bucket because all these are flat colors. And you can see now if we play what we have here for a little bit, you can see how it's starting to actually work out in our favor as a work cycle. But in this one, I actually have to work on the hands a little bit more to put them in position. So I'm gonna go and bring my selection tool and I'll select them and start manipulating them around a little bit. She's starting to look really good. And in all animation, you have to understand this is like the worst part when you're doing these work cycles. That's the worst part. Some people say lip sync, but I actually prefer lip sync and head turns to work cycles. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip this hand off. I'm gonna put it on the side for a little bit because I just want to duplicate parts of it, and I also need it for the left side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and choose just bits and pieces of it. That looks almost right, but it's too thin. I think I want to push it back a little bit and then draw a little bit of a back part on there. Let me duplicate this first because I'll need it for later on for that at the left side. Now that I have the back part drawn in, you can see here from all the way to the upper back, all the way to her waist area and the butt. Now I can bring in this other hand and put it in the back of it, and it will just show just a little bit of an elbow on it. I'll go ahead and rotate this, and that should be pretty good. Yeah, that should be pretty good. You have to have an idea of your proportions a little bit too, though, because you don't want to blow things out of proportion. If you have longer legs, and it depends on the character you're working on too. This is a humanoid character that looks almost like a human, so you want to make sure that the proportions actually stay in sync in all. You want to make sure that they stay in sync in all the poses. Otherwise, it's gonna look wonky, like she's ballooning up and then going back down. It's not good at all. And when we go here and adjust our frames per second, we'll have to have a quicker or slower animation. As you can see now, it's starting to actually work out pretty good. It's starting to work out pretty good. And after the up, we're going to go ahead and flip one more, which is going to be the flipped contact, which is going to be the last pose. And I should do it. I'm going to go ahead and choose my character over there, which is supposed to be the first one that we did. We just need to flip this. I wish there was an easy way to flip it, like it is in Blender. You can see she's almost working, but that first is the last frame. That's why she's kind of not working right. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this. We're gonna make the right leg, left leg, right leg, and we're also going to make the hands one forward and the other one back. The left hand has to be all the way in the back, and the right hand has to be all the way in the front, and vice versa, and legs as well. I'm gonna go ahead and try to make my work easy here by deleting around her waist area. And switching the pants area, that will help me not to actually delete the legs themselves. And then I'll just take the hands and paste them in there. So that was a quick trick by just deleting around the pants area to help me to flip legs without copying each leg and, you know, flipping it individually. I just flipped around the waist area. And now all I have to do is to try to flip the hands and make sure that they kind of switch positions. The left hand is going to replace the right, and the right hand is going to replace the left. And that way I'll have gotten the entire pose that I'm looking for here. And this should be the last one, the last contact pose, so we could go back ahead and fill in the color and those tiny details. But remember, the number one thing with animation is patience. You have to be totally patient with your work. And you may do all this and then realize in the end there is one thing that you don't like about that. But for me, I kind of like the torture of trying to go back and to figure out exactly what went wrong in order for me to get the animation right. It's kind of interesting to try to figure out all that. And the fact that you have one picture and then all of a sudden you try to put them in an array and they actually move. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this hand in closer here. And I'm going to go ahead and delete on the outside. So this one is actually going to become the left hand. It's going to go on the back, and then I'll get this one here that I actually left on top here in the previous frame. I'll copy that and then bring it, and it will be able to slash and wait. Okay, so I was adding those over there, the details over there. I was merging the layers, and I'm going to bring this hand, and it should work perfectly as a right hand. Let me go ahead and delete this one first. Should be able to erase that one. So that was the hand, his or her left hand, excuse me. So if I put this one on top of it, it should work perfectly as a right hand. And now we'll have switched positions of the hands as well. And now you can see when we play it, you get kind of a feel of a walk cycle. You could see the legs are there. The hands are a little bit jerky, so we're going to have to try to figure out where the problem is coming from so we could fix it. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and erase this, the original character that I pasted in, that I've been getting all these ones off of. And then I'll bring in one second here. I just want to bring in all the erase all these other things that were on the side, and then I'll bring in my paint bucket, and I'll start picking the colors and try to fill them in and see how it works when everything is filled in. So that jerky movement may be coming from these other portions that are not filled in, or these other positions that kind of need a little bit of brushing a little bit. So paint bucket now with a color picker, and I should be able to fill in all this. So this is going to be the next mission for the next 2 minutes, to try to figure out that if I can refill all the colors, to see if the walk cycle won't be as jerky as it looks right now. And when we achieve that, then we will go ahead in the next video and work on the details and add a little bit more polishing on it, and I should be able to work it. So I'm gonna go in each frame and I'll make sure I actually fill in. What's gonna happen actually, since now that I have the color that I have for the shot, I'm gonna go ahead and fill in the entire thing on the shot, and then I'll be back filling in the other parts. But for now, let's work only on the shot or the jacket or whatever she's hat top, whatever she's wearing on the top. And remember, some of it, like right here, has even the outer line, the outline, not perfect. So I'm going to be switching between the paint bucket as well as the pen here. Pen for the outline with black, and the jacket with purple. And then I have, of course, this dark purple. And you have to try to prevent that when you spill the color in and it goes all over the place. You just know you have an opening somewhere, like right here now. So you want to grab the pen and try to make sure that your entire shapes are closed up before you start to fill in the color. You can see how it's working here. And that always is easy. Thank God for the paint bucket. Fills up the entire shape. And now you can see when I play this that the work cycle looks a lot more smoother, even though we haven't filled in all the shapes that we need to fill in. It looks a lot more smoother, and it looks like we've actually achieved what we're here for, which is the basics of getting the work cycle. But I'll go ahead and finish filling in all these and see if we actually even get more smoother and a lot better. Oops. That is the ink spilling all over the place because your shapes are not closed up. So that's actually good. That's convincing enough. And I think we've tied down the basics. So now from here on, it's always going to be practice. So if you do it and you actually achieve some kind of results like this, the next thing is you challenge yourself and go even further. So repeat the same process with a different character a few times, and then you can now start getting variations in the characters. For example, a character who has a little bit of a limp or a little bit of a swag there could be a little bit different than this. One leg may take a little bit longer. So the thing is to get the concept of, these poses, and when you get that, you can apply it to any character and make them look convincingly walking. So this video was all about us getting the basics down, and in the next videos we're going to be showing the practice videos where actually we now care about the look of the entire character. But in the next video though, I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit of polishing on this character, where we're going to add shadows and highlights, and also add a little bit more smoothness to make sure this one actually looks a lot better. That's going to be the final video. So if you stick around or skip straight ahead to the next video, you should be able to see a more polished walk cycle than this one. This one is getting the basics and it's tying down all the poses, but in the next video you're going to get a little bit more polish to it than this actually is showing you. Let me first go ahead and fill in all the color on all of them. And in the end, I'll show you just a little bit of the animation, how everything tied down. And this is one way of posing the characters to make them walk. So you erase parts and then keep breaking other parts and make sure that you actually have the uh, character poses in there. But in the next video, actually, when we're doing the walk cycle, I'm going to actually break down the entire character and have it on different layers and show you guys how you can manipulate that. It's more like you have a puppet and the puppet is all set, all drawn. So to achieve that, you have to draw almost everything on a different layer, all legs on different layers, all hands on different layers, and you have to break each into different parts. Like you see here on the feet, you have to break it into 2 or 3 parts. And that way we can have different, we will be playing with a lot of layers at that point and trying to figure out where everything is supposed to go. But the gist is to have all these poses, and the way you get to that is going to be different for everyone. But in this tutorial, we're doing frame by frame, where we actually alter our puppet to fill in the void. We alter our puppet to make sure that he actually or she actually fits uh, all the poses that we want from her. But in the next one, we'll create a pre-made puppet and make sure that all parts are moving. So that we will not be breaking and slicing parts, but we will instead be actually just moving parts and placing them in positions where they're supposed to be ending up. But that's a whole different series that I'm actually working on. In this series, it was just to get the gist of uh, the poses, and you can see now this is the final animation and how it feels like. But there's another video to this, as I mentioned before, that polishes it a lot more and also adds shadows and highlights. I like adding shadows and highlights to my characters. They always add a little bit of a believability, a layer of uh realisticness onto it, which makes the character and the whole animation feel a lot better, a lot smoother. And it makes it feel a lot more professional, if you would say. So now if I play my animation, you can see what's going on here. There's absolutely no way you can tell somebody this is not a walk cycle. It is choppy, but it is a walk cycle that actually is getting all the fundamentals down, which is what we were looking for. So it's believable enough, um, even without polishing to it. So I'm going to go ahead and play around here with the frames per second to see how it works. The more frames per second is the faster it can walk, you can see here. And the less frames per second is the more choppy and slower it will go. But every animation actually has its own fitting. For a walk cycle, I usually want to do between 10 to 12 frames per second.
Hey everyone, welcome to the last and final episode of the walk cycle with FlipaClip. So in this video, what I'm going to be doing, it's easy, it's the last part. I've tested out my animation and everything. So I'm just doing the final touches, as you can see. If I can zoom in here, I'm just going and adding highlights and a few shades here and there. So I recommend that you actually do this part the last, because what happens is when you have bends and folds, say in the legs here, you want to make sure that the highlights and the shades that you're adding actually go with the floor. If you added this before you broke your puppet up, you're going to be breaking them up as well, and so you will need to go back and add the color flats and also add the highlights and shadows. But if you do the highlights and shadows finally, it's going to give it kind of this cohesive look, and everything is going to be tied in together finally when you do those And you can see these ones I'm going frame by frame as well. And I have the onion skinning on. You can see here I can see what is in front and what is back, and I also color coded them. You can see the hind frame is red and the front frame is green, and the current frame is busy in color. Everything is its full color, so they're like shadows, and once you animate for a little bit you get used to them. But let's just go ahead and add highlights. You can see here on the socks. Now I've determined the light is coming from the back, so the highlights are supposed to be where the light is coming from, depending on the dimensionality of the character. But I like this. It adds some kind of vibes to it. It makes your characters look a lot more believable, and as though you did not paint them in a FlipaClip. In my next series, I'll be showing you guys how you can draw characters from different programs, and then you bring them in here. But for now, this works. This really works well. Just adding a little bit of highlights and shadows in there will make your character stand out, look a lot more believable. So how I get these shades and tints for these highlights, I go pick up the same color with the color picker in an area that I actually want to add the highlights. For example, here in the socks, I picked up this hot pink, and what I usually do is I make it a little lighter. So I just go to the color wheel and make it a little bit lighter in order for me to have that. And I usually stick to 2 or 3 colors throughout my animation. So you can see now I'm working on everything pink. I'm working on everything pink. And then after that, I'll go back and choose the red color that she has on her shorts, and I'll work on highlights for those ones as well, and shadows for those ones as well. So it's better to always actually keep your colors a lot limited. It makes work easy for you. For example, here I'm going through all of these, and I'm gonna do all highlights for the color that is purple, pink, whatever you want to call it. And then afterwards I'll go back and pick up the color, and then I'll do all the highlights for a different color, and so on and so forth. It's just rinse and repeat at this point. But it's really interesting. Right now you've already tested your animation. Everything is clear the way you want it. All you want to do is add those tiny bit of details in there. And then also, of course, I'm looking out for things that I may have missed. But remember, drawing for animation most of the times, just adding these tricks makes it believable. All you have to do is to make somebody believe that this girl is actually walking. You don't have to draw a Picasso kind of reality drawings, unless your animation or your animation supervisor wants actually that. But for these purposes, all I wanted to show you guys in this series are just the basics of how somebody can actually do an animation cycle. And it's not perfect either. This is just showing just the basics. If I was to animate this character to walk, and it was going to be in a film or YouTube video or whatever, as part of that film, but not the process of showing you how to animate a walk cycle, I would add almost a frame in between all these and make sure that everything actually is more soft and is more easygoing. And as of course, what happens is every once in a while I play the whole thing to see if it's still moving right, because that one highlight or one shadow that you put in the wrong position may be able to throw you off. And if you don't know where it's coming from, you can't even recover it. So it's actually good to just do like 3-4 frames, and then you test the animation by playing it. And there we go. So in her headphones, I put the highlights and the shadows in there. I put the ones in the shot. And now what's happening, I'm going back in the hair here. in her hair. So I picked up a color that is a little bit darker than what she has for her hair, and I'm going to put shadows in there too. Of course, I'm following the direction of the light as well. I want it to be cohesive with what I have for the for her jumper and the socks. You have to make up your mind and determine where you want your highlights to be and where you want your shadows to be replicated. And not overdo it as well. Just a teeny tiny bit. Like you can see what we're doing here is just enough. I would suggest you use one of your inkers, especially the pen that you use to ink, and you can just adjust it slowly by slowly and draw whatever you want to draw. It's kind of an amazing situation. And the other thing is that I enjoy this process, the agony of trying to animate this, trying to figure it out. You play an animation and it's already jumpy, and you try to figure out what frame it comes from. You have to really like that part if you want to be part of the animation. Otherwise, if you get frustrated, I've seen people who say, "Oh, I'll animate everything, anything, but I will not do a walk cycle, or I'll not do a lip sync." Which brings me to a point. The next series, usually a series takes about 2 hours of video content, but in the next series, we're going to be actually animating a lip sync. So in that video series, what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to add audio into FlipaClip, how to create a character. Of course, all of them I go through how to create a character from scratch. But this time we are going to learn how to lip sync our character. So we're going to create all the mouth shapes, and we're going to add our voice or our audio in there. So if you don't know how to add audio in there, just heads up, you're going to be learning that and how you can actually adjust it to sync to your animation. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and draw all the shapes of the mouth, and I'll show you bit by bit, step by step, as always, how to make your character talk. Now we know how to make our character walk. We know already how to make our character blink. The next thing is going to be how to make our character talk in the easiest way possible. So that's going to be our next form of series. And if you've liked watching these ones, guys, please go ahead and leave me a subscribe, share with anybody that you know who's actually using FlipaClip on their phone or tablet to animate. Also leave me a comment in the comment section below so I can understand what you guys think about this and if you really liked it. The other thing that is a bonus, now that we've been going through this almost 4 weeks now, what is going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and compile the whole series, and I'll be uploading it in about 4 days with the whole video. So if you don't want to watch this broken up 4 videos, you could sit through that one video, which is going to be long. I just hope and pray you don't just sit down and try to go through the entire thing all at once, which also explains why we should take it easy and slow, and also enjoy the process while we're doing animation. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope you're good, and I hope to see you again in the next video.